So we are back reading more from Hagakure, The Way of the Samurai, and I've been having a lot of fun so far. Getting through the book in this way has been really rewarding because I have to absorb the information multiple times, right? Like I'll read the book and as I'm reading, I am highlighting things and making notes and sort of in some cases transferring notes over to my notes app. Like I'll copy a quote over and thing, and then I'll also, as I'm reading and doing the video, I'm still absorbing the information again. And then when I have to go and edit this, it's another wave. And then of course, after I've done the video, the things that I shared are sort of circulating in my mind for days and days and days. And mixing in with the new things that I'm reading too. So it's really, really lovely. And I hope that if you've been watching a few of these videos that you've been having a similar experience. So the three sort of like themes that I want to share today are mastery of willpower, ideas, mindset, speech, and expression is another theme that I've been picking up on. And then, of course, findings in death. Because, you know, the samurai, I think we've learned by now, are obsessed with death. So, we're gonna just jump straight into it. When meeting calamities or difficult situations, it is not enough to simply say that one is not at all flustered. When meeting difficult situations, one should dash forward bravely and with joy. It is the crossing of a single barrier and is like the saying, the more the water, the higher the boat. So, yeah, here we have, he's nothing if not consistent. This idea that you should rush forward into calamity, into disaster, and he says, rush forward. One should dash forward bravely and with joy. It is the crossing of a single barrier, and it is like the saying, the more the water, the higher the boat. Yeah, that's lovely. The more the water, the higher the boat. I've encountered this thought before as well. Neville Goddard, who is, I mean, listen, if I start doing videos about Neville Goddard on this channel, yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But one of the things that Neville has a lecture where he talks about facts overflow the world, or facts flood the world, and it's his interpretation of the biblical story of the Ark, Noah's Ark, and if you know anything about Neville, you know that he thinks the entire Bible is a metaphor, which is one of the reasons I like him, because I also think the entire Bible is a metaphor, and most of which I have no understanding of on my own. And I love when I discover people like Neville who have such a nuanced interpretation of things like the Ark, where he says that the flood represents, the water represents facts of the world, things that are happening that come at you, the deluge of whatever is going on. And the Ark is your mind. So in your mind, you are able to, because of course it's your mind, right? Because how could Noah take two of every animal? Yeah, because he didn't take two of every animal in there. It's because it's not a real thing that he's talking about. It's your mind. You can put anything that you want in there. You can lock yourself into your mind with all of the tools that you need to survive the deluge of facts that are currently flooding your world. And 40 days, 40 nights. And eventually you will, hit ground. but so he refers to the ark as this as this mental place where you can take refuge above the facts of the world. And I like this as well, with Yamamoto. This well, it seems like this is a saying that existed around that time too. The more the water, the higher the boat. So uh, I see the relationship between those two ideas. Um, I mean, it's almost the same story. The higher the water, well, how about flooding the entire world? You doesn't get the water doesn't get much higher than that, right? But then the boat doesn't get much higher than that, right? So that's really nice. Uh, it is spiritless to think that you cannot attain to that which you have seen and heard the masters attain. The masters are men. You are also a man. If you think that you will be inferior in doing something, you will be on that road very soon. Master Itei said, Confucius was a sage because he had the will to become a scholar when he was 15 years old. He was not a sage because he studied later on. This is the same as the Buddhist maxim, first intention, then enlightenment. Yeah. So that's a pretty light one, but still quite deep. Uh, there's another passage that fits this sort of theme. He says, in the stories of the elder warriors, it is said that on the battlefield, if one wills himself to outstrip warriors of accomplishment, and day and night hopes to strike down a powerful enemy, he will grow indefatigable and fierce of heart, and will manifest courage. One should use this principle in everyday affairs too. I just thought that was really poignant, that he's saying nothing really happens without first having the will for it to happen. And even the will to attain seemingly insurmountable things, because in both of these uh, uh, passages he's making reference to sort of superlatives, right? Because he says it's spiritless to think that you cannot attain to that which you have seen and heard the masters attain. And then he says in the other one, in the stories of the elder warriors, it said that on battlefield, if one wills himself to outstrip warriors of accomplishment, and day and night hope to strike down a powerful enemy. So he's encouraging you to set high goals for yourself, which sounds like any modern sort of like motivational seminar, right? But again, why I find these things interesting is because this is from early 1700s Japan, and what I like doing is finding these sort of like ancient threads that have never really gone away. That in any era you could find these ideas as truths. So the next section section is about ideas, mindset, speech, and expression, which I think is forming up to be one of my favorite little categories as well. When one's own attitude on courage is fixed in his heart, and when his resolution is devoid of doubt, then, when the time comes, he will be of necessity and be able to choose the right move. This will be manifested by one's conduct and speech according to the occasion. One's word is especially important. It is not for exposing the depths of one's own heart. This is something that people will know by one's everyday affairs. Yeah. This reference was made in earlier passages too that we read in previous videos about being very careful about your words, not being someone that, for example, only speaks big words but acts differently when met with the occasion, right? Such as the man who liked dragons, and when met with an actual dragon, he died of fright. We did that one in the previous video. And what I like about this is he's saying, one's word is especially important. It is not for exposing the depths of one's heart. This is something that people will know by one's everyday affairs. Um, but even before that as well, uh, he's basically talking about how this alignment between your your attitude, your speech, and your actions. And by now, if you've watched enough of these videos, you can probably guess Christ is one of my favorite reference points, and I just see so many similarities in how these two talk, because Christ says something like this as well. He talks about how your what's in your heart will come up out of your mouth, and that's how we will know. And this is put beautifully as well. I feel like I want to read it again. When one's own attitude on courage is fixed in his heart, and when his resolution is devoid of doubt, then, when the time comes, he will of necessity be able to choose the right move. This will be manifested by one's conduct and speech according to the occasion. One's word is especially important. It is not for exposing the depths of one's own heart. This is something that people will know by one's everyday affairs. Oh, that's so beautiful. It's so nice. It's like it's that just the whole thing is it's such a complete idea that your attitude being fixed in your heart will reflect itself. It will lend you the ability to make the right choice in the moment, right? And that your words are not for expressing the depths of your heart. It's more about the everyday actions that we'll see. So what's in there is what will show in your everyday doings, and certainly in crucial moments as well. So the focus then should be in fixing one's own attitude on courage in your heart. And it's really nice. And I think in other I should look more into this. I've encountered this idea before that courage is linked to the heart in some type of expression. They compare courage to what's going on in your heart. I need to look more into that. If you know what I'm talking about, comment and tell me. Uh, and also, what I'd love for you guys to do is as I'm reading these, like if something sticks out to you, if there's a line that resonates with you, drop it in the comments right as you hear it. That'd be really cool. Okay. The next thing is this is only the same thing about like ideas and mind and speech. After I took up the attitude of a retainer, I never sat sloppily, whether at home or in some other place. Neither did I speak, but if there was something that could not be done properly without words, I made an effort to settle things by putting 10 words into one. Yeah. And I think he does that, actually. It's really, yeah. I highlighted this because one of my, I just like being, I don't know what open, vulnerable or whatever here. uh, I I think I'm too verbose, and recently I've been learning how to be more concise in my speech. I can do it when I'm writing, quite fine, but in speaking, I've been learning to be more succinct. So I think I've only just begun to make some visible progress. And even in looking back in these videos, I can say, yeah, a little bit. So just imagine me even more verbose than what you've probably seen so far. Yeah. Okay. Calculating people are contemptible. The reason for this is that calculation deals with loss and gain, and the loss and gain mind never stops. Death is considered loss, and life is considered gain. Thus, death is something that such a person does not care for, and he is contemptible. Furthermore, scholars and their like are men who, with wit and speech, hide their own true cowardice and greed. People often misjudge this. Yeah, this is. I had to share this. Again, with this book, it never ceases to amaze me the things that Yamamoto finds it important to share, in perpetuity. He wants to make sure that people are aware of certain character traits that are often misjudged, and I see this line a lot as well in some of the things I've shared and some things I haven't shared yet. He often says people often misjudge this, or people often misunderstand this, or people often, So here he's talking about calculating people who have a tendency, and I'm sure we all know people like this, right? People, ones who have a tendency to literally calculate, to keep a score, or who are too transactional in nature, tit for tat, this for that. What I like is that he's explaining why these people are contemptible. Then, because they likely see that death is considered a loss and life is considered a gain. Thus, death is something that such a person does not care for, and he's contemptible. Well, we already know how Yamamoto feels about death. That he can't get enough of it, right? He cannot wait for death. He's everything with him is Yamamoto would make a good member of the Addams family. He would just fit in perfect. He would just sit around the breakfast table every day, every morning, and just talk about death and how sweet death is and how many wonderful things can be found in death, and how contemptible a person could be if they are averse to death in any way.
When we first met, it was an evening much like this. Magic in the air. A boy.
A girl.
An open grave. It was my first funeral.
You were so beautiful, pale and mysterious. No one even looked at the corpse.
Someday we'll be buried here, side by side, 6 feet under, in matching coffins. Our lifeless bodies rotting together for all eternity.
Cara mia.
Oh, sauvage.
Yeah. So I think I'll leave it there.